So I did a bit of a deep dive into the Ukraine-Russia situation and history, and I want to share some of that with you here. So this first image is a breakup of the primary language of Ukraine. So we can see the red on the southeast area are mostly Russian speakers. And then on the east, the people speak primarily Ukrainian. So Ukraine is kind of, now it's a conflicted and divided country. So I'm going to give some insight into that. So the language that the people actually speak, this is what the map looks like of a breakdown for what language they actually speak. So going from that, we have the ethnicities. So the red here was all of the Ukrainian-speaking people, and the yellowy brown is people who are mostly speaking Russian. However, the ethnicities here, it shows that a lot of these ethnic Ukrainians are in the area that's being fought over now. The ethnic Ukrainians that speak Russian just above Crimea, that's where there's a lot of Russian forces right now. And then there's also on the east of the country, these are ethnic Russians who also speak Russian. So all that yellow and brown / part. So as far as what's going to be part of Russia after this war, it's probably that yellow-brown part. And here's another breakup, which is the exact same divisions. So this is the political leanings in the 2004 election of Yanukovych versus Yushchenko. So Yanukovych was the person who was thrown out by the U.S.-backed coup in 2014, but he was the democratically elected leader of Ukraine from 2004, and then again in the next election he won. But this shows the same kind of breakdown of the divide of the populace politically. It mirrors the linguistic as well as the ethnic kind of divide. So it would make sense that if the country were to be partitioned, that it would follow a similar kind of divide. So that was the 2004 election. Here's the 2010 election, and it looks like it's the same people. Yanukovych versus, or maybe that's a new guy that he's against. I don't know, but the breakdown is very similar, except now it shows some other areas that supported Yanukovych. So those can show. So in the far western area, and then that's on the edge of the Ukraine bloc, the far northern area. That's right. Both of those blue ones up near the top, they're both right up against Belarus, Little Russia. So here's one more kind of in-depth ethnic breakdown. So starting on, it's very similar with the mostly the ethnic Ukrainians are in one area, and the ethnic Russians are pretty much in the other area. The yellow and blue kind of breakdown. So it seems like this would be a likely outcome from the warfare going on, a similar breakup as these colors, except that it's very possible that the three top right yellowy orange ones in this map will end up on the Russian side because the river Kiev, or the Dnieper, divides them. So this is going back into history to show that this Russia, or New Russia, that the name has been floated a number of times, but it's actually a historical name going. So this is a map in 1897 showing Crimea as its own thing, New Russia as its own area of the, I guess this would be the Russia or Soviet Union, but the Russian Empire, I guess it's called then. It becomes the Soviet Union after the First World War, I suppose. But that Russia controlled all of this, and the New Russia was its own specific area, which was the north banks of the Black Sea. And you can see Donetsk and Lugansk in that map. I guess I included this screenshot, which was just saying that that's the term of Nova Russia, is that it's the north of the Black Sea, historical term. Anyways, I don't want to redo this, but it shows Donetsk and Lugansk on that map, where Donetsk is in New Russia, and Lugansk is a little bit outside of it in the Russian Empire, I guess it is at the time. And a region of the Russian Empire. And if we go back historically even further, I messed these up, but you can see this range in yellow. This is basically like a big plain. So it's basically the territory of the horse people, going back to the Scythians and then the Mongols, and basically it's a big flat plain, and where there's not a lot of towns and stuff, and where horses dominate. So it's separate from the forested areas and the forested areas above and the mountainy areas below, and desert to the east. It's a big grassy plain which has a very specific culture and more nomadic and pastoral. So the people who are trying to set up permanent settlements, they get driven out by the horse people, and if you're not mobile, you can't really keep up. And then this is more recently in the 1700s, the 18th century, where this is a region that the Russia called the Wild Plains. The Rus, basically that it was very sparsely inhabited, and basically controlled by, at one point, the Golden Horde, but it's basically it was just kind of like wild land, wild pasture that can only really be used and lived on and taken advantage of by nomadic horse type people. And for that reason, its settlements are rather new. And the state of Ukraine is a rather new thing. So this I found from some blog, but basically shows that what became Ukraine was all at one point Russia, basically. So Kiev was founded by the Russians, the Rus. At one point, on the far left of this map, I guess that used to be part of like Poland, Lithuania, or maybe even Hungary. And then the pink used to be part of Poland, Lithuania at one point, and then was in control of Russia. And basically, the Ukraine was kind of, or I guess its original space is the yellow there. And its territory was kind of just added to by Russia over time. So this map is showing more territorial changes in Ukraine. So starting in the earliest one would be 1917, is that pink dashed line. That would be the Ukrainian Republic of Kiev. Then the green dashed line on the left would be the West Ukrainian People's Republic, and Carpathia, Ruthenia, whatever that means. So then in 1922, this is the green in the middle, is what became the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. So that was when they joined the Soviet Union. That was their territory. And then in 39, that yellow part on the left was added on after they carved up Poland and gave that part of Poland to Ukraine. And then the orange on the bottom is what they took from Romania. And then the pink on the far left is in 45. That is what they took from Czechoslovakia. So then you can see back on this map, like that little portion on the far left from Czechoslovakia is the one section that's kind of different from the whole rest of the left. The strongest Polish regions are the strongest yellow, and then so you have these influences from Romania to Hungary to Poland to Lithuania, and then the Russians, and then the different changes in territory and administration over time. But basically this whole region in blue has traditionally been the area of the horsemen, basically, and then end up being the Soviet area. And the area above it is more forested and had more kind of Germanic influence, and the Poles, who are a little bit different than the Germans, but still kind of the same tribe. But a bunch of tribes were all kind of squished up together when and pushed out of all of these grasslands by the Mongols. So we see an idea of what has happened in the past for Ukraine, and that can guide us towards what can happen in the future of Ukraine. So it's my opinion that Russia won't want to invade all the way to western Ukraine. I think they'll probably not even invade the Cherkasy and the Kirov, Horod in the middle, and I think they'll probably stick to the east of that. This map here shows one possible division of Ukraine that could be just based off of the kind of the political leanings and everything, and the language differences. This one would kind of make sense, with the blue being the Nova Russia and the green being Ukraine. And then potentially that one Transcarpathia returning to Hungary, but that adds a whole degree of complexity that seems less likely. It's more likely that Hungary will just hold on to that in order to be able to influence Ukraine. That's what I would kind of guess. And otherwise, Ukraine just ends up being kind of a satellite and will join NATO and all that. So this is another representation of what we just saw, basically, but from another source, but coming to the similar kind of conclusions that Ukraine will end up as a landlocked nation, and that the Nova Russia will be there. But when we look at all of the battle developments, the Russia is invading down to the west of Kiev, and or Kiev, I guess is how it's actually pronounced, and the Dnieper, not the Dnieper, like I said in another time. So from the way that the invasion is going so far, it looks like they're potentially just going to end up leaving a few of the regions on the far west, because they've already seemingly started to invade some of these. All of some of that northern one or two seem like they're completely Russian now, and then to the west of the Dnieper and Kiev. So I mean, that can be given up in treaties, we'll see, but that could result in a separation that looks kind of like this, which is a much bigger Nova Russia, and a smaller Ukraine. And this actually is seeming probably the most likely so far. And then whatever happens with that Transubstantia on the border with Moldova. That'll be kind of interesting. But this is seeming like potentially the most likely outcome at this point in time. But Russia has lots of work to do on the ground militarily in order to achieve this outcome, which would be a huge victory for Russia, and all the economic stuff will come around because just in time it all happens. And then here's one final possibility of an outcome, which sees potentially two different regions going to, one to Ukraine, one to Poland, and then one more region, the Kirovohrad, being part of Ukraine, which is also potential. Also, it kind of seems like from the most recent maps that Russia's staying at the border of that one. But we shall see how it all turns out. But hopefully this video has been informative as to the geography, a little bit of history, a little more insight to the languages and the political leanings, and even the cultural and ethnicity differences. And one final thought is this map again. This would kind of be maybe the kind of interesting and telling one, where this is a historical map. So if you just restored the Soviet Ukraine back to Russia without taking the areas that were given to it from Poland, then you would have basically this whole green region. And if Russia were to give that other region to Moldova, then anyways, it's just, I don't know, something about this kind of resonates as that would be the most aggressive one if Russia completely captured Kiev and didn't want to return it to the new state, and then potentially there's no Ukraine left